All right, so I'm going to begin the AMA with a brief disclaimer. Um, Please be aware that the information shared during the AMA is primarily focused on discussing concepts and ideas related to Arcadian Reclaim and Project Dignity. As the game is currently in its pre-alpha stage, these concepts are subject to change. Using words like promise and intend and consider or plan or aim or propose or contemplate or anything similar in expression should not be taken literally or as a binding commitment. Instead, just understand them as part of an informal conversation about the ongoing development of the game. Additionally, we want to emphasize that Project Identity and Arcadian Reclaim are not intended to serve as financial tools for our players, and we have no influence over the pricing of in game assets on the secondary markets. Any discussion related to the game's Web3 components should be considered in the context of creating an enjoyable gaming experience. So, by participating in the AMA, you acknowledge and agree to these terms and understand that the information shared is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Project Dignity shall not be held liable for any decisions made by players based on information provided during this session. I know that's really long, but that was just something that we have to get through and make sure that everyone understands that. Again, this will be recorded, so you'll be able to go back through this and listen again if there's anything that you missed. Okay. So we can start the AMA. Dee, is there anything that you want to kind of go over before we start fielding questions about Arcadian Reclaim?
Uh, no, just feel free to. Everyone can shoot right away. Let's go, guys.
Okay, so we have someone raising their hand. So we're going to be bringing people up stage first as priority, and then we'll start answering questions for those of you who do not want to get up on stage, either due to anxiety. Totally understand that. So I'm going to be bringing up Elsking. Helsking, I sent you an invite to join the stage with us. Okay, so looks like Helsking might be not here. You have to accept the invite.
He's typing something.
Okay. Okay, we can wait for Helsking to jump up. We're going to go to our next person, Elias. I'm going to be sending you an invite to come speak.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. Thanks for coming up.
Hey.
What's your question?
Yeah. So I'm just asking this on behalf of the community first. So when can we expect the game to officially start rolling out to players to be able to play in pre-alpha?
So as far as like actually being able to play, we should launch in April in a really like skeletal form of pre-alpha, which means you will be able to incubate your tadpoles. You can generate your tokens. You can look over the map, press on some things, maybe interact with some things, and then maybe a few weeks, maybe even earlier. Let's see how it goes. We should be able to implement actual resource gathering. And the reason why it's going to take longer is because we don't really want to just add any type of resource gathering. You want it to launch it with a deeper feature right away. We don't want it to be just skeletal and you just gather resources with no progression. We want the evolution system to be inside already, which means it's going to take slightly more time. So TLDR April, and then resource gathering that's already with evolutions early or mid-May.
Okay. Yeah, that's all the question I have.
Thanks so much, Elias. I'm going to, I think you can just step down. Yeah, there we go. All right, so next up we have Nuboko Demon. Sent you an invite to join us on stage. Hi, Nuboko. What's your
Hi,
question?
indeed.
Yo,
I'm not a good English speaker, but the question I have is that are mythic seals gonna get their movements? Because I saw that the authors came with the movements.
do you mean the animations on the assets?
Yes,
Yeah, the GIFs. So you mean the animation on the others, right? On the in OpenSea, right?
yes, I meant the animation. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
So as far as like any others like or creatures having movement, our game won't be like it's basically overworld, which means you just pick your creatures and you send them out into missions and stuff and you gather things. You don't actually move your creatures around. Now whether you can see your animation that's on the OpenSea on the inside of the game, that's possible, but as far as like actually moving within the game, not anytime soon.
And for the animations in the, for example, in the OpenSea art,
Right.
like,
So
okay,
right. So in selection menus and stuff, we can probably
yes,
make it so that you can see the animations. Yeah, it's not that big
okay,
of a
okay,
deal. It's definitely possible.
okay, okay, okay. That was my question. Thank you.
All good. Thanks.
Thank you, Iboko.
I see Helsking actually asks his question.
Okay, yeah.
What breeding actually do? So there's no breeding, and I don't plan to add breeding, likely ever, because I mostly believe it's not a very healthy aspect of the game, especially in Web 3. It just adds unnecessary inflation to where we can actually control things way better if we release the assets. So instead, maybe you can capture creatures, maybe you can rescue them, but you can't just infinitely breed them and have like a a family of 30 that has sex with one another infinitely. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Do you please? Please, let's keep it professional, okay? You're gonna kill me.
This is very professional. I mean, look. All of these breeding games, you know how it goes. I mean, it's your second
Winbreed.
stepsister, your cousin, and they just, it is what it is.
All right. Thank you so much for the question. We're gonna bring up Lemon Tea. Lemon Tea sent you an invite to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Lemon Tea. What's your question?
Yo,
My question is how the rarity and uniqueness the authors and genres can reflect inside the gameplay, and if the authors have a special abilities or advantage inside the game. That's my question.
Ali, can you?
Did you? So I caught the second part. Can you repeat the first part of your question?
Okay. How the rarity of each author can be reflected in the gameplay inside.
Got it. Okay. So how does rarity affect with otters affect gameplay, and will otters have any special abilities? Is that correct? Did I catch that right?
Yeah.
Okay. See?
Right. So, what I need to tell people off the bat, and I've said this many times in chat, but I guess not everyone caught it. But the overworld gameplay, as far as like resource gathering, you playing on the outside of the map, is not meant to be completely balanced to where you're competing on a level playing field. Everyone has their own goals that they can reach out for, and everyone has things that they can try and achieve, which means that rarity is going to affect. First of all, for missions, it affects how many traits a creature can have. So the rarer your creature, the more traits it can have, and which means that you need less creatures to succeed in a mission because missions would be gated by the amount of traits So a mission can have 3 trait requirements, which means that if you have, say, a rare otter, you might be able to do it with just 1 creature. Otherwise, it might take 3 if you have 3 commons.
I got.
Thanks for the question, Lemon Tea. Is there anything else? Or is that it?
No, that's it. Thank
All
you
right.
for the answer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Next up, we have EO Destroyer. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. EO Destroyer. Hey,
Thank you.
welcome to the stage. What's your question?
So just curious about the frog situation. So what's their role? Do they have any kind of role in this game, or is it just otters and tadpoles?
So frogs are meant to be like the ultimate access piece for you, and for you to be able to get everything that you would get otherwise and be needed to compete with others, you would not need to. It's basically your tickets to early mints, to exclusive mints, and you don't need to compete with others for a limited quantity. And because your ticket base is basically fractionalized because it's tokens, you can actually trade it with other players. You can sell it. You can stack it. It's all up to you. But as far as like having like in-game impact, no. It's basically
Just
an
a
early
just a
access
vanity
generator.
piece. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so we don't have any more requests to come up on stage. So we'll start fielding some questions from the
There's a
chat.
lot in the chat. Yeah.
If you still want to come up on stage, feel free to raise your hand and we'll pull you up. So someone tagged me one merch, Bob Kester. I think I'm saying that. One merch.
I mean, what kind of merch do people want?
Stickers. This is a suggestion.
Stickers are boring.
Broad
Come on.
I assume just kind of the general merch fair, stickers, clothing, sweaters, shirts, hats.
I mean, if there's a lot of, if there's actual demand, we might be able to do it. I was actually interested in doing limited drops instead of just having merch available, which means like maybe you release like a specific highly stylized otter hoodie or whatever, and there's only 100 of them. Instead of just having a merch shop that's always open and just infinite. But yeah, all of that is like way down the line and if everything is successful. And if there's obvious demand.
Right. Okay. So another question that I saw in the chat from, I think it's the Beaver or the Biber. The PvP mode is only for seals, or can we see or fight? Can we fight seals versus otters, essentially?
Well, first of all, PvP is not coming for probably a long time, being honest. But the goal is to mix and match actual teams. You don't need 3 otters or 3 seals. You can have 2 otters, 1 seal. The opposite of that. It's all up to you. You can have 3 different creatures when we have more. The idea is that they will all have their own differences and unique things about them. So ideally you don't want 3 of each, unless the meta kind of asks for it.
All right, next question from Midas. There will be any limits for missions if whales have 40 plus creatures? So limitations on missions.
Feel free to use all of your creatures. That's the whole point. As far as like having limits and caps for actual creatures, the whole idea is that instead of trying to fight botting and multi-accounting, instead of that, we just release creatures as like an access ticket to our game. And with that in mind, we don't need to actually fight bots or multi-counters because there's no purpose in you actually making more accounts, right? We know how many players we have because that's how many assets we release, and that's how many actions you can do. And because the overworld is not meant to be balanced, it's all kind of fine. And I should also say this, as I just hope people don't freak out. Just because the overworld isn't meant to be balanced doesn't mean that PvP or PvE is going to be affected by this, because those modes should be normalized off the get-go, which means everyone starts on the level playing field and no one has any lead or anything.
Great question. Next one is from Gold Army. When we evolve our pets, will its appearance change? For example, if I evolve my pet to level 20, will it have a larger body? Will the body change the NFT view on OpenSea as well?
Everyone in the chat, just spam ping Palurus right now. Just ping Palurus, everyone. Just spam him. Spam, infinite spam. The more the better. The more chances you get at this being a feature. Yes, good. But yeah, I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be possible. It's not a priority, obviously, but maybe. Who knows? It's not a priority for sure.
But a possibility.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Gold Army.
Also, RIP Palurus.
RIP, yeah. You're participating in D's ever continuing abuse of artists. Thank you, guys. Next up, we have It's Merb. Can you provide any information about partnerships or collaborations that you have secured to promote your NFTs and game? So I can answer that. There's a couple of other NFT projects that we've been in talks with. So a lot of that stuff takes a lot of time, planning, especially if we want to do it right. So just baseline, yes, we are working on collaborations with other projects and hoping to make them as engaging as possible. Because for those of you who participate in other NFT projects, I think that collaborations can be kind of dull and lackluster, and they don't really bring that much inventiveness or creativity. So if we're going to do a collaboration, we're going to put at least as much effort as we do as a team into Arcadian Realm. So, or Reclaim, sorry. Question 3. How do you plan to ensure that NFTs remain valuable and in demand for players, even as the game evolves and new content is released? See?
I would hope for that the game is fun enough to where people actually want to play, which would naturally drive the demand. But as far as like actually being focused on pricing, that's not a focus at all for us. An actual focus though is just not hyperinflating our users. So, for example, we have no interest in releasing assets that you mint just for Matic. You mint what you mint, and we release our creatures, but yeah, we don't actually aim for bumping the markets or whatever. Our focus is to make a fun game, and let's hope other people want to join. Or actually you want to get more creatures yourself. It's up to you.
Great question. So one last one from It's Merb. Are there any plans to expand beyond the gaming industry and explore other use cases for the NFTs?
Hopefully not anytime soon. I am very easily distracted. Hopefully we just focus on the game for now.
Thank you so much for the questions. It's Merb. I think I'm saying that right. Next one is from Jay Langley. I wanted to ask about the PvP aspect of the game since this interested me the most. When will this be added to the game? Sorry, the chat just went blank for me. When will this be added to the game? Also, how deep will the combat system get?
That's way too early to actually decide to go deep on the PvP systems. But the goal is to make it normalized with like long-term progress and actual leaderboards, which we don't really plan to have like an earning mechanism per se where people can earn like actual cash, but the goal is to have leaderboards both for PvE and PvP. So that's all I can say. And as far as like when PvP actually comes out, it's gonna take a long time because we're like a small team and it's a pretty new thing for all of us. But we just want to make it fun, accessible, and something that's repeatable and replayable for a long, long time.
Great question. Next, we have another question from the Biber. Does rarity influence PvP? Am I at a disadvantage if I face my common seal against a legendary seal?
No, your common seal can whoop the ass of a mythic seal as long as you're good enough and you plan accordingly. Yeah, that's the goal. It should have no effect at all at PvP, PvE. It's mostly rarity affects missions and overworld very heavily, but has absolutely no effect for PvP or PvE.
Next question from Bardabel. Is there a leveling system for the creatures?
So the way I'm planning to do it is not have actual levels, and instead of levels, just have actual skill progression and evolutions. Which means there's a specific percentage for you to level up your creature, not level up, but just evolve and actually increase your effectiveness at the things that you actually do. And have pity systems as well, so you don't actually get cursed with bad RNG. Like even if you get unlucky at a certain point, you should be able to evolve nonetheless. But no levels for now, not planned.
All right, no levels planned. Thank you for the question. Next up, we have Mako, who has a couple of questions. First one is, so when can we determine what kind of skill our seal or otter will have?
That depends, because as far as like missions go, we should be able to have the stone engraving somewhat soon. That's probably a better question to ask Tiffany and Granty, but I would assume it's like a few months, a month. We'll see. And that's for actual missions. As far as like PvE, again, it's not coming all that soon, so I can't really go in depth about it because I would just be lying to all of you. I'm not sure yet.
All right, next question. How do stats work? Will it be random or every otter and seal have the same stats? How will that work?
Everyone starts the same, and then as you do specific tasks, you improve at the tasks that you do in a random way. So I will actually pull up a screenshot for a second. So this is just a mock-up, but it was made by Shekun at my request. Let me just... Sakul is trolling me again. Okay. I'm going to post this in the broadcast chat. The idea is that any task within the game that you do, like quite literally anything, whether it's gather wood, whether it's gather stones, whether it's refine the wood, refine stones, do lockpicking, identifying maybe items, we'll see, whether you fish, any action that you do within the game is going to have a pool of, let's say, 5 to 10 augments, talents, anything you want to call it. Now, whenever you proc your evolution, you can pick from 3 out of those 5 to 10 talents, skills, whatever. And that is a permanent talent that your creature keeps. Which means that even if you and your friend do the same completely the same tasks, you will evolve differently. And every creature is going to be unique in how it does things and the better they do things. So maybe your woodcutter is faster at cutting wood, but maybe your friend's woodcutter gets randomly wood from a different tier. Maybe they get a different resource sometimes altogether. Basically, that's how talents are going to work.
Great question. Last one from Mako. Will PvP elo system have some sort of season, or will it be an elo system? Like if you reach top 100 before the season end, will you be able to get some rewards? Can you just expand on the PvP system if there's anything to expand on?
Yeah, we totally aim to do seasons and leaderboards. That's the whole point of doing PvP and PvE. Is you have seasons and you try to climb as far as you can, and as far as PvE goes, PvE is meant to be a roguelite system to where at a certain point everyone dies. It's an infinite run and everyone dies, and it's just the question of how far you can go. And based on how far you go, that's the reward that you're gonna get. And yeah, we're gonna have seasons for it, obviously. And the same thing for PvP, obviously.
Awesome. Great questions. I see another one from Elias. When you say evolve, what does that mean to my character's ability to do missions? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so as I just recently explained, you get your talents up by having these random procs, and then you pick what you get better at. And as far as when missions come out, missions are going to have an insane variety of things that you might require. The whole goal is to have a template for missions and then add different criteria that you must meet. So one mission might ask you to have a fire trait. That's specific because there's like 5 fire traits. It might require you to have like 5% in more wood gathering. It might ask you to have an otter that has a fire trait and like stone gathering. It's gonna be wildly different in what it asks. And yeah, your skills are gonna be very important.
I saw someone had asked, so to expand on that, someone seemed a bit confused about there be no level system, but there will be traits levels. No levels for the characters, but your traits can level up, essentially.
Yeah, your traits just improve. It's not a leveling
Right.
system. There's no.
They just improve. Okay. Okay. Another question from the Biber. Will there be an in-game market to trade otters or resources with other players? Essentially, will you be able to trade resources through an in-game market?
I'm not sure. It's definitely not a priority for us because we have third-party marketplaces that do this. So yeah, it's not a priority. If people actually want that, then we have enough time and we have enough resources to actually build that. Yeah, maybe someday, but it's not a priority, and I don't really see a good need for it.
All right. Another question from It's Me RB. I got it right this time. Data release for pre-alpha. I know that I think you had mentioned this earlier, but I think some people are concerned about we're coming close to the end of April. Do we still have plans to get it in before April, or are we going to bleed into May?
Yeah, we should launch in April. But as I've said, it might take a few weeks to actually implement a resource gathering alongside your creature's actually getting better at it, because we don't want it to be skeletal. Like we could release it with like baseline resource gathering where like no data gets gathered and there's no improvement. But we would rather release it in a state where it's meaningful. So yeah, pre-alpha in April, resources in early to mid-May.
Awesome. Great question. We have another one here. I read about the NFT, PvE, and PvP in your platform, but is it necessary to hold your own NFTs to participate, or can the users use NFTs from third parties? Essentially, a renting system. How does the NFT, PvE, and PvP work? And will the holders have full control of the NFTs? And how are rewards calculated?
You hold your asset and it's your own, which means that you don't deposit your assets into a contract. There's no farm like in Sunflower Land where you have to deposit your assets. Your asset is your own. You do what you want with it. What was more to the question? Kind of blanking.
So just asking about whether or not you need those NFTs to participate, and if you can use other people's NFTs. So there will not be any sort of rental system or third-party system that allows you to borrow someone else's NFTs, correct? It will strictly be you have to own the NFT to play, and that's it.
Yeah, you have to own your own NFTs, and you probably need more than one, because every single action that you take requires a creature to actually be assigned to that action. There's no renting. I'm not a fan, just as breeding. I think these designs are somewhat in their retirement phase. Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah, not for us.
And the last part of the question was, how are rewards going to be calculated? I know that's kind of a vague question. I don't know if you can speak on that.
As far as them being calculated, that would be in like leaderboards in PvE and PvP. As far as like in the overworld, you'll craft your stuff. There's no calculation to it. The more that you have, the more creatures you have, the more access you have to more mints, the more upgrades, the more progression in the overworld. Specifically in the overworld.
Great. Another question from Elias. In regards to traits, a while ago you were airdropped trait stones. What happens when we apply them to our otter and seals?
Oh boy, another deep one. So just as the traits are for every action that you do, as I said, every single action should have like 5 to 10 talents, augments, however you want to call it. Every trait stone that's actually elemental based, not including the random trait stones. Every element will have probably at launch 5 different traits that you can get from that specific element. So let's say you use the fire trait stone. You get randomly assigned 1 out of the 5 fire traits to your creature. Now, naturally, if you have a higher rarity creature, you can assign more of these stones, and you can have different traits. And if you use a random trait stone, then you pull from the pool of 25 because there's 5 elements, and that gets assigned to you. And you can freely burn another one to reroll what you have. That's the goal.
Great question. There's another one from Minimum Grunt. The tadpoles that were given to otter holders, would those be able to be incubated without a frog?
Yeah, in V2 you can incubate without a frog. However, you're going to be nerfed pretty heavily in your return. I think it's like 50%. So ideally you have a frog, but if you don't, just keep stacking, and you might do it more slower, but hey, if you save it up, you can get into those bigger mints.
Great. Another question from Midas. How many tiers are there going to be for resources, and what refined resources are going to be used?
So initially, we were planning to have 3 different tiers for resources. So different tiers of wood, stone, and fish initially. And naturally, to get to the higher tier, you need to refine your crappier resources. And then to get to the highest tier, obviously, even more. And you would need both the lowest resource and tier 2 to get to tier 3. As far as what they will be used for, the lowest tier resources are basically just your everyday use. So maybe you need some wood, maybe some stone to actually send your creatures on a mission to begin with. If you want to actually build upgrades for, let's say you have a lumber mill and you want your lumber mill to be more effective, well, you need wood, right? So you spend your wood. And some of them will obviously require the higher tier resources as well. And also, another thing to note that I haven't mentioned to a lot of people, the way we structured this, we don't want people to just play in this, how do you call it, leechy type of way. So basically, you will not be able to claim your resources and put them on chain when they're the lowest tier. You can only trade them and withdraw them once you have refined them. That's where the trading will come in. I hope that helps. That's about it.
Great. Great question. Akraf asked about when marketing plans are going to be coming. So in regards to marketing, we did a little bit before the mint. We had mentioned earlier that we do have some collaborations in the works with other projects. Those are going to take some time because we want to, again, put some effort and creativity into those collaborations and make sure that they're worthwhile for both us and the other projects. And also, we'll be doing a lot more front-facing marketing when it comes to Arcadian Reclaim once we have that minimum viable product. And once we have the pre-alpha ready and kind of bugs are put to the side and that we have something steady for the community, we're going to be ramping up marketing once that is released. Hope that answers your question. Another one from the Biber. For the farming of resources with otters, we need the token, or just with the otter we can farm on the game? I hope I worded that correctly.
Not sure what he meant by token, but all you need are the creatures to do the gathering. Now, as far as like missions go and refining, you might have like costs associated with them, but as far as like just gathering resources, you just need the creatures and time. Creatures and just time.
Question from SF. Is there going to be story or lore behind Arcadian Reclaim?
Yeah, sure. Though, again, initially we just want systems to be live and actually have our evergreen mechanics in the game. And then we can focus on unraveling what we have. There's already a tone that we aim for, with like creatures and being in this like realm. Basically, all that I'm gonna say is humans are baddies probably in this world, and we just want to take our land back and have it be green, lush, and fantastic to live in.
Great question, Asa. Another one from Mako. Will there be a sync system like in Sunflower Isles?
Nope.
No sync system.
No. No sync. Sync bad.
Another one from It's Me RV. When otters in Sunflower Land? Are there any plans to have them show on Sunflower Land at all?
I mean, so the thing with otters is This is like a little bit of a cop out, but technically they are in the game being hats. But as far as them being there as like creatures, ideally we would have them already. The issue is they actually live on land and they're not in the sea, and you have your plots there with your crops and stuff. So either we need like a small island somewhere, or maybe like a plank of wood where they stand or something. At some point we should have it live, but it's not a focus. Unless like someone that's a developer that's not on our team wants to like make a PR, we can like quickly check it and approve it if we like it. But yeah, either it's gonna take some time or just initiative from the community.
All right. Another really, really important question from Minimum Grunt. When penguin?
When penguin?
Yes.
Bowden, when penguin? Bowden, when do you want penguins to be live? Is Bowden here?
Is Bowden here? I don't see him in the audience. I don't think he's here.
I mean, if Bowden is not here, then what's the point in having penguins, right? For anyone not clear here that doesn't know Bowden, Bowden is like the embodiment of a penguin in a human, I guess, or something like that.
Bowden really likes penguins.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
I mean, penguins are one of the creatures that we have our eyes on. Along with like platypuses, turtles, I think we had in mind, like krakens, a lot of stuff, a lot of different stuff. We also want to have creatures from different biomes, so not just creatures that primarily live on the sea. Ideally, we have like creatures that live on different biomes. So maybe like meerkats or something. We'll see. But penguins are definitely on the radar at some point.
So a segue from that question, what are the plans for another creature mint in the coming months? Are there any plans at all?
Sure. Ideally, going forward, we want to have seasons, and basically seasons being like 3 to 4 months long, and after the end of each season, you would arrive at the mint period where you actually get to mint your creatures. So you play for 2 or 3 months, you acquire some currency, you acquire some resources, and then after that time is done and the season has come to an end, that's where everyone is ready to actually mint. So it's like an occasion that everyone prepares for and everyone knows the timeline. And the season also should be themed around that creature as well. That's kind of the whole point.
That's exciting. We have a question about the snapshot for the chest airdrop. Do we have a tentative date for that, or will it be completely random when we announce it?
Trademark soon.
Soon. Okay, so
Trademark soon.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean,
All right, guys,
I
tried.
I think it's safe to say it's probably in May, but no promises, but hopefully in May.
All right. Hoping on May. Question about guilds. Will there be guilds?
Do you guys want guilds? I know you want it. I know you want guilds,
Yes,
but like, do people?
I want guilds. Absolutely. As someone who loves the social aspect of games, that's primarily why I play them, to socialize and play with friends. Having guilds is something very close to my heart.
So I'll share like a thought that I had. It was only like a small discussion and just a kind of a fleeting thought that I had. I was thinking about having like periodic bosses that pop up on the map. Maybe they occupy like a small land area, and you would like deposit your creatures into the smart contract of the quote unquote boss. And then if you have enough power, you can kill it. So maybe guilds could come into that it sounds like it would be like a good fit. You're like fighting bosses as a guild. It's an interesting concept. I mean, I'm not against having guilds as long as guilds are there to have fun and not to extort your user base of your guildmates. If people get what I'm saying.
Great. So I did miss a question from Minimum Grunt. Thank you for tagging me. And guys, if you have questions, tagging me is much easier for me to see it, just in case I move past it, but I'm trying to cover all questions in the chat.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people pinged me, but not you.
Yeah, I'm the one fielding questions, guys, so ping me, please. Minimum Grunt asks...
Yo, everyone heard what she said? She said ping her.
Yes,
Ping dead.
Ping, please. Thank you.
At dead.
Would more trade stones be airdropped or purchasable or be found on missions as the existing ones were for seals? So when more trade stone airdrop, if at all?
More trade stones, right?
Yes.
We don't plan to airdrop more trade stones, but it should be a thing that you can get from missions and from gathering stuff sometimes. So you can get them through the game, but no airdrop of trade stones. Instead, you get chests.
All right. Another follow-up question from Elias. How will we be saving our data on the blockchain? Ideally, we don't do as many transactions on the blockchain. However, data should be still saved there to be secured. So
that's a fantastic question. And all I can say is, we don't look at Web3 and blockchain as this holy grail. The way we see it, blockchain is just a tool, just like any other tool, just like any other coding language. So most of the things out there should be server side and on our end. And hopefully you get as little transactions as possible and you can just progress without having to sync every day and just go through like having to pay 500 gwei to just send you out on a mission. You know, we basically a Web 2 game with Web 3 assets, not needing syncs and not needing to pay all of your money.
Fantastic. Great. Another question from MeRB. Can we create an unlimited number of teams of 3 otters in the game? So if you have, I don't know, 500 otters, you can use all 500, correct?
I mean, you can't use it all at once, but you can mix and match and make teams. There's no like, you don't like lock up a team and have like a roster that's filled out. Yeah, you can mix and match if that's what the question was about. I guess.
Somewhere around those lines. So I think it was. So I assume it's about PvP, and when you're doing PvP, unless it's about missions, because then missions would be unlimited, correct? If it's PvP, yeah. Obviously you'll only be able to do one team at a time, but yeah. Missions are unlimited. For clarification.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. I'm just going through some more questions here. A game mode for guilds would be cool. For example, having a week to look for some rare items within the guild or something similar. I think that would be really cool if we can flesh something like that out. Great comment. Yeah. Lots of pings, no questions. All right, here's one from Koopy Bread. How does the chance of actually getting NFTs and other stuff with legendary and mythic seals otters work? Will it be a box with RNG? So can you expand on how obtaining NFTs within the game will work?
You ideally mint stuff through what you gather on the overworld. And as far as missions go, I guess technically you're more likely to get your chance to mint things if you have like rarer creatures because you have more traits, which directly impacts the amount of missions that you can actually do. Yeah, there's no like box with RNG, but There will be RNG because missions in themselves are extremely random. But the more creatures that you have and the more diverse your trait pool is, the more you can succeed at it. So it's I would call it controlled randomness.
All right. Controlled randomness. It's very descriptive. See? Appreciate it. It's me, RVS. Why otters?
I
Good
mean, why not
question.
otters?
Why
though?
otters?
Like why not otters? Like who doesn't want an otter? Like if you can have a pet otter, just imagine those human-like hands touching your face, caressing it. They're cute. What do you mean? They're just adorable. If I could
agree.
have an otter pet, I would have an otter pet.
Agree. But I don't know how otters are in captivity, but
You live
super
in the US.
adorable.
I actually Googled it, and I think some states allow having otters as pets. So you can move there and get one, actually.
Interesting.
Feel free.
I didn't know that. Good to know. Next question from Minimum Grunt. Are there plans to incorporate Arcadian Reclaim into a mobile version?
I mean, our initial goal is to obviously already for it to be playable on mobile, but as far as like having an app, Grant, he has told me that he wants me to like get him a $50,000 wage and like give up my 2 kidneys, a liver, and like give like an eye transplant, and then he's gonna give us a mobile version. Yeah. Ideally, you can already play on your browser through like MetaMask browser or whatever. But as far as app, maybe someday, hopefully, yeah.
Great.
Or you can just bully Grant into doing it someday.
Yeah, everyone ping Granty.
Yes.
Just harass the whole team. Okay.
It's perfect. I love it. That's the approach.
That's how we
When
get
we
things
see
done
community, when we see community involvement, we mean just like pure harassment. I heard this works really great and just really healthy.
here.
Yeah.
So Nuboku he wanted to rephrase his question. But will mythic seals be getting an animation? Will they be getting anything special?
I think this was like one of the first questions, if not the first one,
Right. I
about
think
mythics having
he had
animation.
asked earlier. I think just
I mean,
looking for more clarification.
we want mythics to be as unique as possible because they're like one of one. So obviously, we'll work as hard as possible to have them be extremely different. I've had thoughts about even like having themed skills, and by that I mean the looks of the skills. I don't mean actual like busted skills that like watch everything else. But yeah, cosmetically, they should be very, very different.
Another question from It's Me RB. This is a question about the pre-alpha. So he's asking, he or she, they, do we need to get otters only in that set? So I think the question is, to play the game, do we need a set of otters? Or does it matter? Can we have seals and otters?
You can mix and match and have as many as you want. That's the whole purpose. Though, again, you still need like an otter or a seal initially, because frogs are just for incubating. But yeah, you can mix and match and have as many as you want. That's the whole point.
Great. Another question from Akraf. Mythic otters had a GIF in OpenSea. Will the seals get the same treatment? Yes, I think that's what we just went over. I think there are plans to make them as unique as possible, being as they're one-to-ones. Okay. So we're coming up on the hour. I think that's most of the questions in chat. I don't see anything else.
Yep. More or less.
Perfect. That's actually great. We can just cap it at an hour. Oh, we have one from God Level. What would be the usage of ports?
Oh boy.
Interesting question.
God, I feel like I'm coming up with so many concepts, and then suddenly people bring them up, and I'm like, oh God, I added this concept as well. So creatures are gonna have their own missions, but at a certain point, our goal is to expand that into having ports, ships, and crews, and having missions for those. Meaning, you get a crew, you hire a crew, you build your port, you build a ship, and it's like a very advanced version of missions, like a way bigger system. It's way more complete, with a lot of moving parts. But again, this is like later. But it's a crucial part that we have in mind, yeah.
Okay, so I do see a couple of questions in the general chat. Do you want to just go over this last one, and then we'll call it there? So
Sure.
we have some questions about the actual playing of the game. I can spend hours playing, or all missions and actions in the game require time to complete. So essentially, what sort of play engagement will the game have ultimately? Will it just be you strategize your missions and you let them go? How much actual active in-game time will players be playing?
Yeah, so ideally, I don't want our players to sit at the monitor and bleed their eyes out just clicking on objectives. So things will be time-based. Though a big goal for me at least is to have missions and gathering be made in such a way where you can choose. As far as missions go, the mission pool should be so freaking massive that you can really like pick out the time frame that you want, which is like whether it's an hour, 2 hours, 4, 8, 12, 24, 48. And that somewhat would scale with your rewards, but not to the point where the biggest reward is from doing the mission that's 48 hours. You still should stay somewhat active. And as far as like the resource gathering, we also want the resource gathering to also somewhat scale in time. So you can gather for 4 hours, let's say. You can gather for 8, 12. It should all be up to you, and you should be able to plan accordingly. But yeah, PvE and PvP is where you sit down and you play and you grind. Hopefully, we design it in a way where you can. Maybe you're sitting in a bus stop. Maybe you're having a drive home. Maybe
We
you're
don't
having
condone you driving and playing on mobile phones. Just want to clarify that. We do not,
you.
we do not condone that.
I don't drive personally, so I'm very biased in this. I mean, sitting in the back seat and playing a
Yes.
game. I don't mean. Hopefully, you're
Passenger
not
only.
battling seals and crashing to your death. Hopefully, that does not happen. But yeah, ideally, PvP and PvP is for active gameplay that you can sit down, grind, or just sit down and play for a short while. And Overworld is for your somewhat idle and strategic gameplay.
Great, perfect. I want to go through these questions that were put in general chat. They were a while ago, but I didn't see them because they weren't
Let's
in
go.
the broadcast chat. But Sunflower Land has a very clear strategy to sustain the game's costs. How do you intend to establish and develop the game when it comes to longevity and keeping development costs up to par?
We have a very secret and amazing superpower that allows us to build our games for cheaper, which is we are all really poor. It's a great strategy, and it's proven to work. And we plan to stay poor. I plan to not pay anyone. We will eat ramen, and we will build a great game. And then maybe at some point we will not eat ramen, and maybe we then eat meat, and not soup, but something that's like more tangible. We'll see. Yeah, we are like, jokes aside though, we are a cheap team, and we release assets to our players accordingly, which means we look at our user base, we see the activity, and based on that, we calculate what we need. Yeah, no one's here. I'm gonna just stop there because I'm gonna say something else about some other games, but I won't because I'm really nice today.
Yeah, we can keep that for another day or another chat.
Yes.
I guess one last thing, and this is something that I'm also really curious about. But how will new creature acquisition work within the gameplay? Within the docs, for those of you that have read the updated docs, there will be a pool of creatures to, I guess, essentially through your missions and gameplay, you'll be able to randomly come across. Is there a finite number of those creatures? And what will the longevity of creature acquisition look like?
So initially, people will be able to earn the creatures that did not get minted. As far as otters go, you should be able to get these through doing missions. You might be able to get a proc when you gather things to get a chance to mint your creature. We're still not certain about the cost for them. At first I was contemplating maybe you still need to mint them with Matic at a reduced cost. But I'm more leaning to just using up game resources initially, just having actual burns. And as far as later on, I want there to be a building that's like a sanctuary. And basically, you save a creature. It is at your sanctuary, and you have a specific time period in which you have the chance to mint it. And if you don't, then that creature is gone. And if you do, that's another creature for you. As far as quantity, again, as I said before, it's all up to us. It's based on how many people are active. If there's need for more creatures, it's all up to the players. Everything's dynamic.
Fantastic. All right. I think that's all of the questions that we have for today. Apologies if we missed your question, but we are running into time here. It's been about an hour, and I don't want to tire D out more than I'm sure he already is. But if you do have questions, D is more than willing to answer them in general chats at any time. So feel free to ping him at any time, guys.
I actually didn't even hyperventilate this call. It's actually amazing. Like,
Truly improvement. Everyone,
know,
let's,
right?
let's clap for D. Oh man, there's
I-
no soundboard on broadcast. That kind of sucks. All
Yeah.
right.
yeah. For people that don't know, I'm like hardcore anxiety driven when it comes to these calls. It's absolutely horrifying. I would rather look down from a 9-story building than do like a public call with many people. Yeah, I appreciate everyone giving their questions and listening. I hope you're as excited for the game as I am.
Super excited. And thank you all for joining us. We'll be putting this on the YouTube channel for everyone to come back and listen to. Really appreciate all the questions, guys, and engagement. We love you so much, and we're super excited for the pre-alpha. Thanks, everyone.